A decade ago, the firm I was working with went bust, and at the age of 52, I found myself out of work. In this video, I'm going to take you through how it happened, what the background was, what I did about it, and how it panned out, and how I can look back on it 10 years later and take some real lessons from it. And spoiler, it worked out fine. Hi, my name's Gareth. I'm a 60-something living in the Midlands in the UK. And before we get into the actual nuts and bolts, it's important that I kind of set the scene and give you some of the background to it. I have a background originally in finance, but about 25, 30 years ago, I moved into IT. And my kind of speciality is rolling out IT programs for large firms. Now, about 12 years ago or so, I had been working with a small firm of consultants, and we had a situation that I was very acutely aware of in the business. I was running as one of the sort of senior consultants. I wasn't part of the management team, but I was rolling out large projects, often in the City of London or elsewhere. The problem that the company had was it only had two main clients, and it was continually in danger of possibly, if it lost one of the clients, it would be under severe trouble. And I was quite aware of that. And lo and behold, the company duly lost its clients and therefore was fundamentally kind of insolvent. The two people in charge decided they would try and keep things going, but they had a major issue, and as much as they had an employment contract with all of their consultants, which basically gave them 3 months' notice if they were terminated. So what they did was they presented a change to the employment contract and asked everybody to sign it. I looked at it and decided that I wouldn't sign it because I was fundamentally just signing away a major asset. And so I chose not to sign it. They duly made me redundant. And at that point, we need go no further into the process other than to say it got to the point where there were legal people involved, and I emerged at the other end with a small but significant pot of cash. It gave me a couple of months of breathing space, which, let's face it, if you're made redundant these days, you normally get some kind of severance package, and this was no different. It wasn't an enormous golden handshake or anything like that. What I did was, and here's the first thing that I think is worth thinking about, I thought I'm not going to rush into anything. I'm going to sit and actually work out what I'm doing here, because although I was at that point I was 52, I didn't have a significant amount of savings, certainly not enough to make retirement at that point even a fleeting possibility. So I thought, well, okay, what am I going to do? The first thing I'm going to do is not panic. So I took a couple of days out, not too long, and then began to look at what my options were. The first thing I really thought about was undertaking a kind of an audit of things that I was kind of good at, things I had experience at, and things I wanted to do. And I wanted to clarify my thinking around what it was I thought I could do in the future. So I spent a few days working that out. And I realized that as part of my work over I'd been with the firm before it went bust for about 6 years. Over that period, I had amassed quite a few contacts within the sort of IT community, for want of a better word. There were people who I had worked with, there were people who I got on with, there were people who were effectively in possible client companies. The other thing I had as well in my armoury was, way back 30 odd years ago, I'd also been made redundant again at that point, and I actually had done some sales work at that point. So I was kind of used to approaching people and talking to them about what the options were. So what I did was I sat down And I went through all of my contacts, and by that time LinkedIn was up and running and was generally a good source of your working contacts. And I went through all of them, and I literally highlighted every single contact where I thought, well, they are somebody who I could conceivably work with or work for, who might be interested in the fact that I'm available. What I didn't do was do that thing where you put the green I'm available for work, because to me that kind of smacks of, I don't know, desperation or unfocused thinking, and I just, good luck to you if you like doing that. For me, it wasn't the thing. And so as a result of that, I got talking to somebody who I had worked with, who actually fronted up. I was rolling out stuff on behalf of an IT firm, and he fronted up the relationship on the company side. And we got talking. We'd always got on. We'd been out for a few drinks. This was in the City of London. And he said, well, why don't you just become a contractor? In other words, now in the UK, a contractor is not just solely a building contractor. A contractor is a self-employed person working in a given field. Elsewhere, it could just be called a consultant. I thought, well, yeah, I probably could. And this guy was acting already himself in that type of role. And he said, look, I'll tell you how to do it. I'll tell you how I do it. He'd been very successful. And he acted as a kind of a mentor for me for maybe the first 2 or 3 years of this new role that I decided to undertake. So let's just pause there and say the learnings so far, which I think I would take from this process are: 1, I didn't panic. 2, I looked at what my position was in terms of strengths, weaknesses, and importantly, what I actually wanted to do next. And I pulled all those together. Then I started looking, 3, at what my options were and what my contacts were. And then the last one was, I found somebody willing to steer me while I found my feet in this new type of role. So there were 4 things. And I absolutely know that I was very lucky, especially on the last one, because that gave me the confidence to know that I was kind of on the right track. Anyway, fast forward, and I have been broadly doing that type of role on back-to-back contracts, acting as if for want of a better word, self-employed, although I work through a limited company, so I'm employed by my own company, if you like. In the UK, there are tax reasons why that's a good idea. So I find myself 12 years further on now, and I'm happy to say that aside from COVID, when I had 6 months where basically I was volunteering and not getting paid, other than that, I've had virtually back-to-back work throughout that whole time. Now, this isn't me just kind of blowing my own trumpet or anything like that, but there are things which I've learned in that time. And the first one is, and I'm just going to take you through this, the first one is, I really enjoy working like this. I really enjoy the flexibility. I really enjoy the fact that I don't answer to anybody. If I want to take time off, I can take time off. The downside, yes, my income stream, I don't know that in 5 years' time I'm going to be doing something in the same company, but then who does these days? Answer, not many people. We Gen Xers and Boomers are the last generation really where we feel where we should feel that is a kind of a career path that we can rely on. That's kind of gone now. So those learnings were critical for me. The stuff I took from it. Where am I now? I'm now working, frankly, because I really enjoy it. I don't really want to retire. I don't have that kind of thing where I feel exhausted and just have to stop because I haven't got the strength or the stamina, or I'm not in some kind of soul-destroying job working with people who I hate. Sometimes I've worked with contracts. My contracts have normally lasted at least a year, but less than 2. And I find myself working with people who, there are sometimes people who I think I could work with you as a team for years. There are other times where I think, thank goodness that I have this coming to an end, because I'm not convinced I could keep this going for much longer. But all that stuff is great. Keeps your mind going, keeps you engaged, keeps you alert. And I really enjoy it now. So I now work because I love it, rather than because I necessarily need to, although I do enjoy the lifestyle that comes with this type of work. And without kind of being too, without showing off too much, my income has always been well in excess of anything I earned in my previous role, with the exception of my COVID year. So, full disclosure. Are there downsides? Yes, there are. I don't get all of those employment benefits. If I take time off, I don't get paid like you can do. I don't get paid holidays or anything like that. On the other hand, the package I normally negotiate more than makes up for that. So let's summarize a few things that have happened to me as a result of being made redundant when I was 52. Firstly, it forced me to stop and think about what I wanted to do. Secondly, it forced me to audit where I was in my career. Thirdly, and this is something I haven't touched on yet, it made me value what I had at home. It made me realize that the cornerstone of my life is my family. And that was a really big learning for me. And sometimes you need something to jolt you out of your kind of complacency, and you realize that these are the people that really matter, not the people who you work with. I had a close relationship with the people who made me redundant, and yes, I felt betrayed. Yes, I felt like they had done a dirty trick on me. They were not entirely honest with me, and the lawyers sorted it out. But all of those things, that sort of reflection on who is really important in your life is another thing which is really worth taking into account. Fourthly, by being effectively thrown out of a nice employed job, it really made me value the strengths I have. And it made me go back and realize that my sales background was absolutely fantastic training to go out and win business. And I'm sure that if you're in a situation like this, you will have other strengths that you can leverage. And I'm sure it will be straightforward for you to take those strengths and find where they're best placed and go and talk to the people. And these days, people are used to getting approaches. And again, I know that for Generation Jones, that's me, and Generation X, this sometimes doesn't come naturally, but for the Gen Zers, it does. They're used to it. My son jumps jobs and is doing very, very well. They're used to it, and if they're in the position to give you work, they're the people who you need to impress. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there because I think I've covered the ground I want to. I don't want to make this a long story, but I think it shows that there really is working life beyond the age of 50, if you want it, to the point where I'm well over 60 and I'm still thoroughly enjoying my life. Whether I would still be enjoying my life if I wasn't quite so in control of it, which I am now, that's another question. So there is a real positive that arose from losing my job at the age of 52. And on that happy note, I'm going to draw this to a close. If you've enjoyed this, by all means, get in touch with me through the comments or through the notes. I'll be happy to talk on a one-to-one basis with anybody that wants to about how maybe they can gain some insight from what I've talked about here. By all means, contact me. Even better, if you wouldn't mind subscribing to this channel. There's other stuff going on. The topic of the channel is the second half of life, and work is still the second half of life. I'm not retired. I don't intend retiring anytime soon, but I understand that this is the second half of my life. Hopefully catch up with you soon. I'll see you then. Bye.